Oh, welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. We've upgraded a few things around here in case you couldn't tell. We're working on things. I keep telling you, we're going to keep making the show. We're going to make it bigger and better and greater than it's ever been before. Welcome into the show. So much to get to today and such little time to do it. Or is there? I have not been in contact with my dear friends Anthony and Bob about Phightin Words this morning. I have them scheduled for 9:30, so we're going to try to wrap the show by then so we can lead right in and they can kind of walk you through some of the chaos and the pain that is, in fact, rooting for the Philadelphia Phillies, who got absolutely dog-walked in St. Louis this weekend. Absolutely brutal stuff. We're going to get there. And you know, how much does Dave Dombrowski have to answer for? It'll be interesting. The media, my friends, they're interesting people. A lot of those media folks around the Phillies are very interesting human beings. Some of them are very good, some of them not so much. I'm wondering at what point are some of those media people going to hold the front office accountable for what was, in fairness, a very foreseeable outcome. And that outcome is that the bullpen was going to be a bigger issue than we wanted it to be. Now, let me raise this up a second. There we go. All right, now we're better. Thank goodness. But yeah, there's a lot to get to on the Phillies, and there's stuff to get to with the Flyers as well. Most notably, if you've been keeping up with the team, you'll know that they picked up 3 out of 4 points this weekend. They won a game on Saturday that I certainly did not want to see them win, just from the standpoint of we all know where the draft picks are at. We all know what's on the line. We all know about the possibility of dropping 2 spots if you get jumped twice in the draft lottery. This isn't complicated. And yet there are some people who seem to really struggle with it. So they win a game against the Islanders. They go to overtime, and thankfully they lose to the Senators, but they still pick up 3 points. And now that weird little group from number 4 through number 8 is all within, I think, 2 to 3 points of each other. So we'll take a look at that as well. And, you know, does Bradshaw deserve a look as head coach? And, you know, I think there's a case to be made that there are worse things in this world than Bradshaw potentially getting the opportunity to prove himself here. Not just now, but over the course of, I don't know, the next 2 games. Let's see how it plays out. Not saying it's ideal. Winning these games at the end of the season is essentially meaningless, but there might be a little bit to it. So we'll talk about that as well. The Masters was an absolutely insane showing on Sunday. My kids, for whatever reason, they had this, I don't know what it was, but they were locked in on the Masters in a way that I don't think my kids have ever been locked in on golf. My oldest was cheering for Rory McIlroy. I like cheering for chaos. There was a guy that I was kind of cheering for going into the day, but I'm going to go a little bit Trumpy in here and say his name is Bryson DeChambeau. He fell apart, didn't he? He falls away, but Rose ends up, gets done, 2-3 holes early and then get to a playoff. So we'll get there as well. I thought that Sunday was a really interesting day if you're a golf fan, even if you're not. I will stand by my belief that the Masters should be played over Easter weekend. There's nothing quite like having a belly full of ham and halupkis, whatever you eat on Easter. Nothing quite like being able to take in the final round of the Masters while you have whatever food it is in your belly. We'll get to all of that, and I'm sure there are more things. The Sixers look like they're going to run it back with Daryl Morey. So, fuck me on a Monday. Let's go out to the comments first, and then we're going to get into everything that's on the docket for today, okay? Let's go out. Chris Freed first says, waiting in line for a real ID. What a way to start a Monday of a work week. I've been getting the messages and getting the emails about the real ID. And I have to travel. In May, I'm going down to Florida for a conference for work. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I need to get a real ID. I don't think I have much of a choice. And then I remembered that I have a passport, so I guess that'll suffice. But I feel like I probably should just get a real ID because I don't want to lose my passport on a trip to Florida. That'd be bad, very bad. So I don't know. Everybody let me know. Is Chris the only one so far in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, and X who's actually gone through the process of getting the real ID? I've heard it's an absolutely horrible process and that the centers are just overwhelmed with people that are actively in need of getting the real ID so they can travel. So interesting. Greg Bondarenko's here with a good morning, all. Oh, Chris also elaborates. Dude behind me is cursing in English and a foreign language. Russ, you have some competition for content creation this morning. Chris, let me know what. I'd love to know what language it is. What's he yelling? Joe Papel, who I saw over the weekend at the Flyers game, says, "Good morning, everyone." Joe, I got the message about the coffee from out in Hawaii. I might have to check it out. Not going to let my wife know how much that coffee is, but there's like a decent enough chance that I'm gonna pull the trigger on buying a bag and see how it is. Josh Gaynor says, golf wasn't something I thought I'd see Russ cover on the show. Bummed. Is it Hovland? Listen, I'm never going to try to sell myself as being a massive golf fan. Choked away his good start. The variance that existed on Sunday and the ups and downs of Sunday and watching the standings, virtually every hole change in the top like 8 or so. That to me is, I think, what made it the most exciting. And that's probably why my kids were so locked in on it. But again, we'll get there in a little bit. Sean C. says, once I saw Morey's own comments declaring himself safe, I knew I was going to be ready for the impending Russ rant. Says also, Bruins and Flyers are locked in one of those real stiff, I don't want it, you take it tug of wars. Yeah, it's bad. We're going to take a look at that as well. Hexram over on YouTube says, hi, Russ. Good morning. Good morning, Hexram. How are you doing? Allison with a yo. Yo, Allison. How you doing? Brian over on X says, no to Shaw. Beating backup goalies when teams are out of it or nothing to play for is meaningless. We're going to break that down because I don't exactly think it's a totally fair assessment, but I'll address it. Andrew Fawcett with a morning all. Chris Fried says Flyers may be hurting their long-term chances, but at least they have self-respect. Notes that the Phillies are 3 bats short from being a true contender. Forget the pen. It's the bats that will bring their doom. I feel like we had this conversation all throughout the offseason, did we not? I seem to remember that. Allison asks, is this a new look for the mic? So here's your real behind the scenes look at this show, right? I tinker a lot with stuff. Had the new intro video. When the show's over, you'll see there's a new outro video. But this has been over there. And so it has to shoot up between the bobbleheads and like over this thing. But I have to move a screen in order for any of it to work. And when I have meetings during the day, there's no built-in mic on the computer that I use. So I have to like move one of my secondary monitors just to get the mic in place for meetings. And if it's over here, I can come across. Now, I might end up tinkering with moving everything over a little bit because I don't like how much of this is in the shot, but like whatever. We'll figure it out. Live, laugh, love. Anyway, if it's distracting, let me know. CMZ says they, meaning the Flyers, lose when they're in the race and win when they're trying to tank. It's irritating. Landros 2 says, don't worry, Ant assured us all the Flyers would lose games down the stretch. Yeah, I seem to remember him saying they're going to lose more than they win. And when I called him on it Saturday, he's like, well, it kept moving the goalposts. I'm like, well, they've won even more recently. It's not going the way that I think the organization thought it would. Brian Knowlton over on YouTube says, call me crazy. And I know the idea is for them to lose to increase their odds, but yesterday's game was winnable. Yeah, I mean, it was. Given how they've played, especially of late, correct. But do you want it to be winnable? That's the issue. Sean C says, hopefully Chicago beats Montreal tonight, so Columbus will still be alive for a playoff spot tomorrow. That'd be great because you want to be facing teams that have a potential, even if it's a minimal chance of making the playoffs. You still want to have those teams feeling like they have something to play for. If you're a Flyers fan who wants to see them, take 1 or 2 on the chin and then potentially land in a better spot. Brian says, Bryson shit the bed big time. He did. Deshambles. It was weird too, because coming out of Saturday, like there was the quote going around of Rory saying that hold on, we're gonna flip over here. This is becoming an issue on this show. Is that camera crapping out? I don't know what's going on over there. It's why, I think I'm gonna have to hire a producer on the show. No, I'm not. I refuse. I won't do it. But I'll fix it while this is going on in the background. Anyway, on Saturday, you had the Rory McIlroy comments and you had the Bryson DeChambeau comments. And Rory said he was going to put himself in his own little world and then noted the fact that like his goal, his idea was going to be Rory said, I'm going to go in my own world. Bryson said, like, I embrace the challenge. I embrace going head to head. So you kind of make of that what you will. And it was tricky because I think on Saturday, hearing those comments, you go, Rory's probably screwed. Bryson's in better shape. And yet, when Sunday rolled around, Rory just looked like the much more composed competitor. And again, like based on those comments from Saturday, I certainly didn't think that was going to be the case. And yet, that's why they play the games. That's why you see these guys go out and get into it and go head to head. And ultimately, listen, I think that Bryson might be a more, well, I've always thought could be a higher end golfer, maybe has a more clutch gene, but it's hard to argue that what we saw on Sunday supports that because he fell apart and Rory was on it. Rory was on his game in a way that, like, again, I'm a casual golf viewer, but he certainly looked every bit the part of the guy that many believed was going to be the heir apparent to Tiger Woods. And so now we switch back over here. Now we're good. I fixed it, I think. Anyway, we'll go back out real quick. Jamie says, I'm not even a golf fan, and that round of golf is some of the most compelling television I've seen recently. I think it's also a byproduct of the fact that the Philly teams have just been so dog shit. I mean, it's one thing when you have the Flyers are bad. We knew they'd be bad. The Sixers are significantly worse than anybody could have even, like, worst case scenario forecasted at the beginning of the season. And the Phillies bats just absolutely falling apart has kind of led you to a point where it's like you want to see anything positive in sports. And so we're finally getting there, kind of. Maybe. I mean, the Masters was it. But, like, the reality is about to sink in for people. Sixer season is over. Flyer season's almost over. You got the Phillies, and whether you want to or not, you have the Union through the summer, and we are still months away from the Eagles reporting for training camp and getting that season underway. So, like, listen, we've been here before, but it is going to be a pretty brutal stretch of Philadelphia sports. So we're probably going to be looking more at national sports. And if I remember correctly, last summer, I did a lot more of, like, touching on national sports stuff. And I will be honest with you, while I have no problem talking about the Phillies, I'm not going to talk about the Phillies for full shows for 3 times a week. Like, it's just not going to happen. So we're probably going to pivot a little bit into some national sports stuff and maybe some non-sports stuff over the summer until the return of the Eagles and then eventually the Flyers and the Sixers. So that's where we're at. Jim Cochran says, looks like the Union are going to be who we thought they were going to be. Yeah, the wheels have fallen off of the Union. They can't score. Gazdag debuted for Columbus, looked very good. It's not ideal. It's ideal if you want to try to, like, force an ownership change, but that's not going to happen unless the league intervenes. So, yeah, the Union have kind of fallen off, which is not great. Let's see. We were asking about the real IDs before. Allison said she got hers back in 2017. That seems early. Greg Bondarenko doesn't have one. Andrew Fawcett goes, I have a real ID. Does it say McLovin? Andrew, does it say McLovin on it? Jim Cochran says, I feel real ID is going to go the way of the $1 coin. $1 coins are great. Maybe not. Jamie says, I have a passport, not messing with that. I'm just like, do I want to go to the DMV between now and the trip? No. Will I do it? Maybe. King Alfred's U.S. descendant says you can get the real ID at the DMV in King of Prussia. All right, maybe I'll have to do that. Chris said that the guy behind him is yelling in Russian. Okay, so interesting. Ford is here. Ford is here and likes the intro and likes the good music. Ford and I are off to a good start on a beautiful Monday morning. All right. Let me see if I can kind of jump here a little bit. But Jamie Rollo says, Danny's going to have to earn his money because he'll never get to pick elite talent at the top of the draft. I don't know when we're going to get there. We're going to get there, though. Ford also says, Phil's now doing what I thought they would. Get used to this. Lack of runs, older roster. This is the Phils. All right. I'm going to come back to the comments in a little bit because it's important. Okay. I'm going to get back to the comments here in a little bit. I don't know where to start. I think I'll start with the Phillies just really quickly because I don't have a whole lot to say other than this is kind of what I was afraid of in the offseason. And, like, listen, I think everybody knows at this point that, like, there are times where I'm happy to toot my own horn. Toot, toot. And I was happy to buy in early in the season through the first 2 series that the Phillies looked really good. And I still questioned whether or not they made a smart enough move in the outfield and that I wasn't exactly a big believer in Johan Rojas, that Brandon Marsh is a limited player, and that Max Kepler wasn't going to be the difference maker they need at the plate. Remember, I said through the end of last season So when this show started, I think in July or August of last year, that you need to add a bat that's going to help to make this kind of a slump-proof group. You need somebody who's going to consistently be able to get on base. I don't care if they're a thumper. I don't care if they're going to rack up 25, 30 home runs. You just need somebody who can consistently get on base to take some of the pressure off of these other guys so they're not getting in their own heads and then they're not constantly swinging for the fences every time, right? So I talked about this all second half of last year. And then when the Phillies didn't show the killer instinct, couldn't put the Braves out of their misery, couldn't put the Mets out of their misery, and then they ended up matching up against the Mets in the postseason, I said, once again, very concerned that the bats are going to go cold here. Very concerned they don't have somebody who makes them a slump-proof team. And so there we were again, friends. And then you got to the offseason. And while I didn't really think that they were going to sign Juan Soto, I thought that they were going to at least make it look like they were more involved. And I thought that there'd be a chance that maybe the Phillies would go out and they would try to do something of value, that the Phillies would try to make you at least believe, even at the smallest percentage, that they were going to try to add somebody who could sort of have an impact. But they didn't do that. Their big signing, which I can't even imagine they would call their big signing, was Max Kepler, who's a good player, who's a nice player, but he's not a difference maker. And he's certainly not a guy that's going to help you avoid a slump. And he's certainly not a guy that you're going to want to rely on in high leverage situations. If you asked me who are the 5 guys that you'd want to see get up to the plate in the 9th inning with staring down a 1 or 2 run deficit, Max Kepler's not on that list. So that to me was a bit of a problem, right? That was an issue. And they didn't go out and they didn't fortify the bench. And so what they did once again was they ran it back in a sense where they were hoping that Brandon Marsh was going to become a player that he just isn't. They were going to hope that, well, if Brandon Marsh doesn't become a player that we hope he could eventually be, well, at least we have Johan Rojas. And Johan's going to take a step. Well, he hasn't. So the outfield as it stands right now is a total mess. And it's a legitimate issue. Now, the bullpen is a mess. There's no getting around the fact that the bullpen is a disaster right now. There's no getting around the fact that this bullpen is going to need to be added to between now and the trade deadline if this team is to have any chance of remaining in contention for, let's say, the NL East. I think the wild card, they're going to be in contention the entire season. But this NL East division is a little bit open, right? I think that there is a possibility that you could get on a hot streak and maybe put yourself in position where you're a little bit more in it than you expected to be. Because if you take a look at the standings and if you go back to what we expected at the beginning of the season, we thought that the Braves would very much be in it. The Profar PED suspension has effectively hurt them in a lot of ways. So the Braves are down at the bottom of the division at 4-11. We didn't expect anything in the Nationals. We didn't expect anything out of the Marlins. So it was you were going to hopefully vie for the NL East title with the Braves and the Mets. The Mets are up on the Phillies by a game. So you're right there. You're still in striking distance. And even with the holes in the bullpen and even with a legitimate outfield concern where I could make the case that Castellanos gets frustrating, but he's still a major league hitter. I could make a case right now that 2 of your outfield spots should be replaced almost immediately. And that's a problem, especially if you're trying to compete for a World Series. I mean, it's great if you think all right, we're getting good enough productivity at the plate from at least some of our infielders, but the outfielders are the issue. And I'm going to try not to include Alec Boehm in the positivity of the infield because he's not part of the positive. Then you got a guy like Edmundo Sosa who can kind of play anywhere, and he's been a revelation this season. But again, there could be a law of diminishing returns, so you have to be really, really careful with Sosa. All of this is to say, this team, for whatever reason, chose to run it back, largely run it back. Now, Stubbs got sent to the minors. So maybe you say, all right, it's not just the all vibes team this year. That's not an impact move. I look back at the guy that I've called Temu.com's Mr. Rogers, Dave Dombrowski, a guy who, for whatever reason, seemed to believe in this team, despite the fact that they've come up short multiple years in a row, despite the fact that adding to this team presumably could put it in position to be at or near the top of the National League, not just the NL East. And he decided to run it back. Now, I've talked to a few people, media people, who have said, well, the Phillies' mindset was Don't lock into a bad contract or a long-term contract at a high salary per year. Don't lock that guy in this offseason. Wait till next year. There'll be some money coming off the books. And then next year's free agent class could be stronger. Or don't get yourself locked into a bad deal because you'll have some flexibility when you get towards the trade deadline. Or if, God forbid, you need it sooner, you'll have some flexibility this season. I haven't seen it yet. The Phillies aren't exactly like in the rumors right now with like 3 or 4 high profile targets. Now, I don't need to know through the media that a team is actively pursuing that impact player. And in fairness, a lot of times, if a trade is made now, the word doesn't get out. It just kind of happens. You get closer to the deadline and then the names start flying. But this Phillies team desperately needs another hitter in a big, big way. And it just feels like Dombrowski misevaluated this season and this roster, and he got himself kind of stuck in a quagmire because now it's too late in some ways for them to rectify this because there are a lot of teams, obviously, that are going to believe that they could potentially be playoff contenders or that they have a chance. So now you're not going to have a team that's going to want to trade an impact outfielder, corner outfielder. Can you find a center fielder that's an upgrade on the market? I don't know who's going to be willing to make that deal right now. And the cost is possibly going to be even higher than it would have been at the trade deadline last year because now everybody knows, all right, the Phillies are where they are. They see an opportunity. They see a potential to do something in the NL East. Why am I going to send them an impact player and not get an impact return? That's where they're at. And I think the Phillies really did misevaluate this. Chris Fried says Dave is stuck with the sins, terrible drafts, player development from the previous GM regime. And there might be some truth to that, but what's the thing that we said about Dave Dombrowski when he got hired here? Dombrowski had a history of being a guy who guts the farm system, makes deals, signs guys, and ultimately pushes you over the hump to win a World Series. Now, in fairness, a lot of times when he leaves a club, their farm system is left in tatters, but you kind of are willing to trade off because you won a World Series. Now, maybe he's taking a more conservative approach, or maybe John Middleton or somebody within ownership is saying, hold on, sport, like, give it a second. We can't end up in that situation again. We've already put out copious amounts of cash for the likes of Schwarber, Castellanos, Real Muto, and Harper as well. And in the case of Real Muto, they've also dealt away prospects. So, like, maybe somebody at a higher level said, you're not able to just burn the whole thing down. No, you're not allowed to trade Andrew Painter unless you're getting a bona fide multi-time all-star stud back. I don't know. But to me, it is a concern that, like, all of a sudden, Dave Dombrowski apparently seems to be like macro view guy. And now he cares about the farm system where, like, making an impact move last year maybe helps you get to a World Series. Making an impact move this past offseason maybe helps you get off to an even stronger start, get out to a running lead in the NL East. Maybe you never look back this year. Hard to say, still early. They've only played 15 games. I'm not about to like light myself on fire and stand outside of Citizens Bank Park, but there are concerns. I think it's okay to be concerned. That's where I'm at with the Phillies. Sean C. over here says, it's like the Phillies run a script, 2 quick outs to start their half of the inning. The next 2 batters find a way to get in, and then there's a chance, and then there is a 20-80 chance they bring those runners home. I mean, listen, how many times have we seen late in games? I'm trying to think, what game was it that pissed me off the most? I tweeted out about it where it was like, oh, Turner got on base with no outs. How many pitches are the next 3 hitters going to see? And it went 3-2-1 to end the game. It was the one where Bohm slammed the bat down. This lineup has the potential to mash and to be incredible and to be everything it looked like it was going to be early in the season. And then this lineup also has the ability to drive you absolutely crazy because there's no reason whatsoever that this Phillies team should have gone to St. Louis and scored a grand total of 4 runs in 3 games. And oh, by the way, all 4 of those runs came in the same game. They all came on Saturday. I'm sorry, that doesn't get it done. Getting shut out twice in St. Louis doesn't get it done. Now, I can understand the frustration, by the way. Like, if you're looking at it and you go, from an ownership perspective, if you're like, why am I going to shell out even more money? Paying all this money to Castellanos, Real Muto, to Harper, to Schwarber, getting hit with the idea of potentially trying to sign Schwarber to an extension. Why am I going to keep shelling out all this money if those big money bats, some of them, are also ones that go quiet. And I didn't even mention Trey Turner, but he's making a lot of money, and Turner's been very up and down. It's a mess. But that's the beauty of baseball, 162-game season. We're not going to get too high. We're not going to get too low. Phillies are back at Citizens Bank Park starting tonight. They begin a series against the San Francisco Giants. It's a 4-game set. Then they welcome the Marlins to town before they go up to Citi Field to take on the Mets. So these next 3 series are going to be really interesting. What does this team look like in a 4-game set against the Giants? Are they able to put the Marlins down in that next one? And then when you're going head-to-head with the Mets, we'll see where they're at in the standings entering tonight's game. 1 game behind the Mets. Do you stay close? Do you jump ahead of the Mets? Do you fall further back? How much importance does that Mets series have relative to like where the standings are at that point? It'll be interesting. A lot to take a look at. All right. Adam Glickus says, you did say that when I said the Phillies were set, your answer stands true. That's why I trust you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Okay. I'm done on the Phils. Phightin Words will be doing an episode later today. I believe at 9:30. That's what I told them. We'll see if it happens or not. But I do believe that that's a thing that's going to happen. So, all right. So we're good there. Let's keep going. So that's the Phils. We love the Phillies. Do we love the Flyers? Do we love the Flyers? And do we love what the Flyers are doing? I mentioned at the top of the show, 3 points out of a potential 4 over the weekend. A huge win on Saturday. A huge win. Bobby Brink with the shootout winner. And then the next day, they take on Ottawa. And that game goes to overtime. And they do lose that game. But what are we doing? Adam Glickus over here says, in all caps, I love my Flyers. I got to be honest. The Flyers are a little bit irritating right now. And it's pretty much for the reasons that you would expect. But like, I have a really hard time with this. And everybody knows where I'm at. I've been here for a long time. The Flyers aren't going to be able to get themselves elite talent if they're picking at number 9. Or if they have the 9th best odds and then they get jumped by 2 teams and now they're picking at 11. See, there's this thing that I just feel like I need to do like an evergreen clip from this show. Like at some point, I feel like I just need to have a clip that can clearly and succinctly explain to some people who are just, I don't know, too dumb. I'm starting to think that it's just dumb, are too dumb to understand why people want to see the Flyers finish with better odds of getting the number 1 overall pick, which is to say, finish with a higher draft position. It's not about winning the number 1 overall pick. Because there's nobody right now in this draft, as I stand here on Monday, April 14th, the year of our Lord 2025, that says there is a generational talent in this draft. There's not. As of right now, what all the pundits say, what all the scouts say, there is no Connor McDavid. There is no Sidney Crosby. There is no Alex Ovechkin. There is no, if you want to consider, Connor Bedard in this draft. There's not an Austin Matthews in this draft. There is nobody who really, truly moves the needle in a high-impact way right now in this draft. Schaefer, the top defenseman in the draft, appears at the top of the board for a lot of people. Then you have any combination of centers and a couple of wings at the top over the next like 4 or 5 picks. And they could all be good. And on Saturday on the Press Row Show, we had Adam Kimmelman on from NHL.com, and he talked about, McQueen is going to be the guy who's like the ultimate boomer bust. There is a reason to believe that at his size, 6'4", 6'5", playing center, if he's healthy, if he gets a good health status update, that he could be the steal of the draft. But if those injury concerns are real and if those issues persist, he's an ultimate bust. That is a risk that a team is going to have to take on. I find myself in the same place that I always have. You want to essentially hedge against the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is that in the draft lottery, 2 teams jump ahead of you. That's it. I don't care about the difference in percentages for where you can finish. If you're at number 4 versus number 6, it doesn't matter. It is a negligible difference in the NHL in terms of getting that number 1 overall pick. I'm going to bring up the Tankathon site just to illustrate the point because, again, I feel like so many people, for whatever reason, they just really struggle. And there's a certain demo, I would say, of people that just don't seem to get it. And they're also the ones who are thrilled that the Flyers are winning games here late in the season because it's good to teach the guys how to win. Okay. So this is the simple version of this, okay? The reason that people like me would like to see the Flyers finish higher in the draft lottery isn't for the number 1 overall pick. If they get it, great. If they don't, that's fine too. It's not about the percentages, because take a goosey gander at the percentages, right? The Flyers right now wake up on April 14th with the 6th best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick, but that's not what counts. It's a 7.5% chance of winning. You move up to number 5 at where Seattle's at right now, it's an 8.5. You move up to number 4 where Boston is, it's a 9.5% chance. Any of those teams could potentially get to number 4, my friends, okay? Number 7, where Buffalo is right now, 6.5% chance. These teams are all clumped together. Philly could just as easily finish at that number 4 spot as they could all the way down at like 7 or even potentially 8, okay? Worst case scenario for the Flyers is they win their last 2 games and they finish at number 9. It's not about the percentage of getting the number 1 overall pick. It's about what happens if you finish at number 6 and you get jumped by Buffalo and Pittsburgh, who take number 1 and number 2. Now your team number 8 in what many consider to be a 5 or 6 player draft. That's the problem. And for some reason, there are a lot of thick-headed Flyers fans who I think just have some version of Stockholm syndrome, who are just like, no, it's okay. You can't tell teams to lose. Nobody's telling them to. You can't tell players to lose. Nobody's telling them to. Well, you can't. It doesn't matter. They need to win. They need to win every game they can. They have to go out. Winning is good. Winning is good. Winning is good. The culture. And by the way, you have a low chance of winning the number 1 overall pick anyway. You have such a low chance anyway. 8.5% chance. You finish at number 4. It's only 9.5% chance of winning the draft lottery. Winning the number 1 overall pick. Why do you want these guys to lose for a 9.5% chance of winning the number 1 overall pick? Because it's not about the number 1 overall pick, dumbass. It's about making sure that you finish in that top 6, preferably the top 4 or 5. And if you finish at number 4, the worst case scenario where you get jumped by 2 teams takes you down to number 6 in a 6-player draft. That's why people want to see the Flyers lose. That's why people want to see the Flyers end up at that number 4 spot. It's not about, we're going to go from a 7.5% chance of winning the lottery to a 9.5% chance. It's a 3% difference. We don't care. I don't care. But I would much rather be in a position where you can draft one of those top players. Now, listen, McQueen might end up being the steal of the draft, as I just mentioned. Big body, plays a premium position. And if he's healthy, maybe he becomes your karmic payback, your karmic justice for Nolan Patrick's career going sideways because of concussions. It'd be swell. But maybe not. I don't know if I'd want to take that risk. But I also don't want to see the Flyers reach for a pick at number 6 or at number 7. So again, I'd like them to finish higher so they can be in the mix and have their choice of a few different players and maybe get the best guy on the board and get a guy who maybe isn't ready to contribute immediately next season, but is maybe only a year away instead of like 4 years away. And I don't think that's asking a lot. I don't think that's a crazy position to take. Now, if you talk to people on Facebook or on Twitter, there are some people who seem to think that that's a psychotic take because some people are just simpletons. But it's really not that complicated. At least I don't think it's that complicated. Now, I'll go over to the comments here and see really quickly. How are we feeling over in the comments about where the Flyers are and about their chance of winning and losing and whether it's good or not? Landros 2 says, thick-headed. It starts at management level year after year after year. Listen, I think you could make a case that upper management waited too long to trade Frost and Farabee, and that they could have done that last offseason, had a couple of kids playing in their spot, or had a couple of bottom-feeding players, bottom 6 or bottom 9 forwards or whatever, bottom 6 forwards that are going to rotate between the third and fourth line. And maybe it makes the Flyers a worse team from the start. They never feel like they have a chance to compete. Maybe Torts doesn't melt down the way that he apparently did. Doesn't cost himself the job. The team still hates him. They finish out the season on a cold streak. That actually is like the one thing that drives me absolutely insane. Okay. I've seen a bunch of people who said, well, they should have kept Torts. Go back on this show. Go back on this show or on YouTube or the clip where I broke down what the guys from Chicklets said and what I had kind of been hearing about the York and Torts confrontation. If any of it is true, Tortorella could not stay. If there was any kind of a potential physical altercation, which again, I did not get the feeling is what happened, but if there was a physical altercation of any kind, he can't stay. If he did threaten to bury a player long-term and try to convince him not to re-sign here, that is kind of sticking it to your front office. I could understand them saying he can't stay. But there are people now who are just like, oh, well, they should have just kept Torts. That's not how this works. And I did ask over the weekend on Twitter. I said, listen, I get that people are upset that the Flyers are winning games. I am also upset that they're costing themselves draft position. And at the same time, what do you want them to do? They traded 5 roster players. They fired the head coach. They don't exactly have a ton of talent on the roster, and yet the talent seems to be a lot more light on their feet. They seem to be a team that has had a massive weight taken off their back. What are you to do? And if there was something that happened with the coach that was so egregious that they felt like they had to fire him, he couldn't stay. So what would you like them to do now? What would you like them to do so that the Flyers, for the next 2 games, lose? You can't healthy scratch Matvei Michkov. Imagine, you can't. The league would have it out for you. So, what's the plan? What are you going to do? Who are you going to sit? What are you going to tell Bradshaw? What are you going to tell the players? Fuck it, guys. I know we can't ask you to lose. Go lose. What do you think is going to happen? You have to deal with reality at some point. And again, I would love to see the Flyers finish number 4, have a chance to get to number 1 or number 2, or remain at number 4, or at worst, fall to number 6. The ultimate bad case scenario here, if you're a Flyers fan, is that you've gone through a very bad season, a somewhat delusional part of the season, a very bad section or 2 of the season, and that you had to suffer through a lot of losing. Some people who love Torts were very upset that he got fired. And then you saw your team rebound and start to play really well at the end of the season. All of that and all of those torn emotions could ultimately result to you falling out of that top 6 and no longer getting what's considered one of the higher echelon players in the draft, albeit not a franchise cornerstone. It's kind of a mess. That would be a pretty shitty end of the season. I'm going to go over here really quick. There's a bunch of comments about the Flyers. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, really, but I'm going to try to go through them pretty fast. King Alfred's U.S. Descendant says, Flyers, we do not tank. Also the Flyers, 50-year cup drought. Coincidence? You decide. It's true. Sean C. says, good thing is the Flyers are far and away the winners in the tanking tiebreakers, way ahead in least amount of ROW and even RW. If they were going to win, at least it was a shootout win. Yeah, I guess. Ford checks and says, Sixers are done for years. Nurse, Morey, old-ass Embiid, they're cooked. Maxime McCain won't save this mess. I'll get back to you in a second, Ford. Sean C. says, silver lining, because I legit crash out every time they win a game. I don't know what the silver lining... Oh, the silver lining is that they are ahead on some of the tiebreakers. Greg Bondarenko says they will settle for the number 6 pick. Chris Freed with an update from the DMV. PennDOT lady is ready to throw fists over folks who are using a speaker on their phones. If you show up, how do I put this nicely? If you're a human being who shows up to a public place with your music playing on your phone through speakerphone, and it's even a remotely quiet area, pound sand. Nobody wants to listen to your music. We don't want to hear what you like to listen to. If I'm at a restaurant and I have some jackass 2 tables over with their music blasting out of their phone, I'm ready to blast their phone out the fucking door. If you're going to be the kind of parent who does the whole, we take our kids out to eat, but we're going to have 6 iPads at the table. I don't want to hear your kid playing FIFA or playing whatever NBA game is on there or playing whatever shooter's on there or playing like tower defense or Plants versus Zombies, whatever shit you're letting your kids play. I don't want to listen to it. All right? That's not a hot take. That's a what the hell is wrong with humanity take. Okay? It's very simple. Have a little bit of common courtesy. Pop in a pair of AirPods. Pop in a pair of headphones. Some headphones are really cheap. I don't have the headphones port on my phone. Get the dongle. Go find a Chinese-made dongle on Amazon. Buy that. Shove it in your phone. Shove the headphones in. Listen to it yourself. We don't need to hear it. The only people who should be doing that are like people with mixtapes. And I still don't want to hear your shit. Connor Allen says, FaceTime without headphones in public is crazy. I hate it. I fucking hate it. I'm going to get worked up. I don't want to get worked up this morning. I've been very calm, very cool, very collected. I really hate the iPads at restaurants. I do. I hate it. I do. I hate going to a restaurant, looking over at a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old, and they've got an iPhone or they have an iPad at the table. Okay? Oh, what about sensory deprivation? Or what about sensory issues? What about kids with autism? Fine. Kids with special needs, by all means, parent how you have to parent. I still don't want to have to hear the game that's being played or the show that's being watched. Now, special needs notwithstanding, you just don't want to deal with your 4-year-old when you're sitting at a restaurant where people are trying to have a nice dinner. Sorry. That's part of what you signed up for as a parent. You kind of have to parent. I'll tell you one thing. You run into me and my family at a restaurant or whatever, you're going to see our kids figuring out different ways to play games at the table. You know what one of our favorites is? You go out to a nice breakfast. They give you the little thing that has all the little creamers and all the little butters. Our kids like to have competitions who can build the pyramid the fastest. They figure out ways to be creative. You know why? Because it's good for their brains. You know it's not good for their brains? Sitting out in public and thinking it's okay to stare at the 15th episode of Bluey for the 45th time this week. Just say it. Now, if that offends any of you, if any of you are truly triggered by the fact that I'm calling out some of the parenting techniques, sorry. I just hope that you don't end up sitting next to me at a restaurant. Now, will I ever say anything? No. We were at one of our favorite places a few weeks ago, an Italian place. It's kind of loud. Restaurant would be kind of it is and it isn't. It's not like a sit-down restaurant, but they have a lot of tables. And it's a great place to go on like a game day to go get some stuff. It's an amazing place. I don't want to say where it is because I'm criticizing patrons from that place, but not the management or the place itself. Okay, very important distinction. And there was this family. It was like 12 people. And they had 3 or 4 iPads for different age kids. And they're playing like some kind of basketball game on these iPads. And the volume is turned all the way up, right? Now, there are a lot of people in this part of the restaurant. They're all just like eating. They're all having a good time. TV's up, like games are on, whatever. And I think there was music playing, or maybe it was the audio of like a Phillies game or something, right? So like, you're not going there to like have a quiet, sit down, candlelit meal. But these people have their iPads all the way up, turned all the way up. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what are we doing? And then the kids are like loudly cheering when they make a shot. I'm like, what are we doing? Guys, seriously, what are we doing? Can we just try just a little bit of parenting? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a wee bit. Okay? Parenting's hard. I get it. I have 4. I get it. But like, let's just try. Let's try a little bit. Just a little bit. Connor Allen says kids are cooked now because of parents. Allison L. agrees. Says teach your kid to be patient and play their own games and color the children's menu. Or if your kids are like getting a little bit too old for coloring the kids' menu, have them like draw something on the back. Have them come up with tic-tac-toe. Have them do with stuff. Like just because there is technology, this is like the thing. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can hand them your phone doesn't mean you should. Let them figure out a way to get over being bored. They're going to be better kids. They're going to be better students for it. I don't miss teaching. And a big reason I don't miss it, I mean, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons I don't miss it is because it was a constant state of glowing in the face, and you couldn't take the phones. They eventually like tried to institute, like everybody puts their phone in a slot on a thing on the door when they came in. That would die like within 2 years of every school year. I used to say GCS, glowing crotch syndrome. I would always call that out in class because you'd have a kid who think they were really crafty. They'd have their phone on their lap, like scrolling through Instagram or whatever the hell they were doing. And I'd say, oh, you got GCS today. Uh-huh. GCS. Glowing crotch syndrome. You okay? Do you need to go to the nurse? Oh, what do you mean? Your phone's on your lap. Go put it in the slot. Like, what are we doing? All right, I'm done. Just getting angry. I don't want to get angry. Jim Cochran has twins. Says, we didn't take them to a restaurant until they were 3 because we didn't want them causing chaos for others. Now, here's the inverse, right? You should never feel bad for taking your kids to a restaurant. And if you are trying your best and somebody gives you a hard time because you're trying, that's on those other people. That's not on you. If you're a parent and you have a 2-year-old and your 2-year-old is loud, is it ideal? No. Should you maybe be taking them to like a very quiet candlelit restaurant if they are that crazy and reckless? No. Can you take them to a pizza place? Can you take them to a place that's not going to be the quietest? Can you take them to a sports bar? Yes. And if people see that you're trying to parent and a little kid's a little kid, they should be kind to you. They should have a little bit of grace in their hearts. And if they don't, fuck those people. Okay. Here we go. Landros calls this the off the rails segment. Yeah, we've gone there. Jamie Rolla says family time at a restaurant means no electronics for anyone. I agree. I've actually, when we had 1 kid or 2, my phone would like end up somewhere near me or like on the table. I wouldn't like sit there actively on my phone during dinner, but like especially more recently, 3 kids, 4 kids, you just don't have the time to look at your phone when you're trying to wrangle 4 small humans. But they see that. Your kids see that. They see the choices that you make as a parent. And if you're buried in your phone, then those kids are going to think that that's okay. So then they're going to want to be buried in a phone. It's not complicated. Not at all. Greg Bondarenko says kids today are way too addicted to electronics, whether it's iPhones, iPads, or even the Nintendo Switch. Well, the Switch is a lot of fun. In fairness, the Switch is a lot of fun. Jim says the best parents are parents that let their kids run around other tables. I know you don't mean that those are the best parents. Those, yes, that's where you drop kick a kid. Not actually, but maybe, but definitely not. Connor Allen says the Chromebooks in schools make it even worse. Learn pencil and paper, buddy. Yes, that's correct. All right, let's see. All right, I don't even remember what we were talking about. I don't remember how we got there. Oh, we were talking about the Flyers and about the tank. Okay, let's just go and spin the wheel because there's no getting back on the Flyers after this. None. There's just no possible way to get there. All right, let's go back out to Tankathon. We're going to spin it one time. We're going to see where the Flyers end up. Fall to 7. So this illustrates my point. In a 6-player draft, if you finish with the 6th best odds and you get jumped by even one team, in this case, Columbus jumps 10 spots to number 3, that is a problem. You can't have that happen. That cannot happen. That should not work. Please don't do that. Please, hockey gods, don't do that to us. We can't handle it. Now, we were talking about tanking, and so really, really quickly, we're going to go over to the godforsaken basketball team. And I love some good basketball. But unfortunately, this season, once again, a post-Mark Zumoff Sixers team shit the bed again. And this year was next level bad, very bad. And as things stand, with the regular season now wrapped up, your Sixers are going to pick 5th in the draft. Now, the downside to the Sixers picking 5th in the draft is that it is by no means a guarantee they're going to get to keep that pick. Remember, it's a top 6 protected pick. This was the pick that the Sixers had to attach to Al Horford's contract to get Oklahoma City to take the Horford contract off their books years ago. And so now, if you're the Sixers, you damn well better hope that you end up somewhere in the top 6 and you get to keep this pick. We're going to sim it one time. Now, in fairness, some of the times that I've simmed this, the Sixers have lost this pick. We just had bad news on the Flyers pick with Tankathon. We'll see if it gets a little bit better here. Let's spin it. Sixers move up to number 3. I love that. That's a little bit of positivity. Thank you, Tankathon NBA, for giving us a little bit of happiness. Now, I'm going to take that happiness and I'm going to curb stomp it because we got bad news over the weekend. At least bad news if you're an actual fan. Bad news if you're a Sixers fan. Bad news if you're hoping that things are going to turn around next year. Daryl Morey seems to think he's coming back. Nick Nurse seems to think that he's coming back next year. And in a season where I have consistently pointed out the fact that this team needs to make a move. This team needs to move on from Daryl Morey, cut bait, thank him for Quentin Grimes, thank him for Jared McCain. You got to move. You got to move on. Bob Myers is out there. There's a previous relationship with Josh Harris. Get that deal done. Bring in a guy who's been the architect of a dynasty. Bring that guy in. And instead, we've essentially been told, oh, these guys are coming back. Not good. Not good at all. I'm going to go over to PHLY had the clip from the post game or from the press conference that Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse had, and tell me if you think this clip sounds like a guy who believes that he maybe had any kind of hand in how bad this was. Let's see if there's any accountability to be had from Daryl Morey about how this season went. Just as a quick reminder, the Sixers went 4-28 down the stretch since Daryl Morey argued that the team still had championship aspirations back in February. 4-28 since he said, no, we still think that we're a championship caliber team. Okay. Let's hear if Daryl Morey, did he take any blame for what happened with the Sixers? Let's go over to Daryl. How are we doing, Daryl?
Ownership, myself, Coach Nurse, Joel, Paul, Tyrese, our whole roster, we expect more. We really feel for the fans who put their heart and soul into this team, and we know we've let you down. Obviously, biggest factor that was really hard for us to manage was injuries this year. We missed, you need your top horses in this league, and we missed 134 games to our.
Yeah, look at Nick Nurse. Can we just take a real quick gander there? This dude looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. This dude looks defeated. This dude looks like he needs a margarita and a spot on the beach next to Paul George. He wore black to the Sixers' funeral. Like, Nick Nurse looks as checked out. I can't even blame him for how bad the season was. He looks as dejected as a head coach has ever looked in Philadelphia, and that says a lot. We'll finish up there.
All-Stars. And, the next highest team was like 50 games missed from All-Stars.
So here's your problem, right? There are truths to what Daryl Morey said, and there is certainly truth to the belief that injuries are what derailed the season. Nobody can debate that. However, it's the way that this team once again failed to explain that to the public. That is where the true problem lies. The reason that people were so upset about the Sixers season isn't just because the Sixers underachieved. It's because they, as an organization, effectively lied to the fans, or at least the fans felt lied to. And it goes all the way back to the Olympics last year. It goes all the way back to many people saying Embiid cannot play in the Olympics. He's got to get healthy. The way that last year ended, he cannot put his body at further risk. He doesn't need more important minutes, which is what you would end up playing in the Olympics. You don't need more basketball minutes on those knees. Get him healthy. And then he comes back. And even at the Olympics, there were times he just looked very slow, very plodding, very out of it. Body just didn't look like it was responding well. And if you go back to the beginning of the season, he's missing the start of the year. Why? Well, it's all part of the plan, and nobody knows. Nobody knows what the plan is. Nobody knows how long he's going to miss. How long have they known the plan was going to be for him to miss the start of the season? And then he gets back in and out of the lineup, and he's missing a lot of games. And he gets back in, and he misses a bunch of games. This organization wasn't transparent about what happened with Joel Embiid. You had Jared McCain tear his meniscus, out for the year. You had Tyrese Maxey sustain injuries, out. You had Paul George get hurt in preseason. Who could have seen that coming? Literally anybody who's ever looked at the history injury of Paul George. It was a high risk, high reward move. It did not work out. Could it work out next year? If Paul George is healthy, I still think he's a really good player. Do I think that the Sixers should probably explore the trade market? Yeah, I think it probably would be a smarter thing to do. Paul George in exit interviews, said that he plans on getting in touch with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid in the offseason, trying to build this thing back up and make sure that what happened this year doesn't happen again. I will say that is commendable. There are going to be people who are going to look at that cynically. I think it's a really good sign. Do I think that next year Paul George should start the season on this roster? I don't know. I think that they should certainly explore that trade market. I don't think Daryl Morey should be the one to have the opportunity to explore that trade market. And yet that is what it appears is going to happen. I find it absolutely maddening. And it feels like we're just kind of get back on the merry-go-round again. We're going to find ourselves back in this situation again next year. It's not great. Not great at all. Landros 2 says, Nick Nurse knows what it takes. That's a guy that knows they don't have it. Morey is about excuses. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. Not good. Connor Allen says, I watched like 20 minutes of Sixers basketball all year. Was nice to just watch college this year. I don't have that in me. I don't like college basketball enough. So yeah, it's not ideal. I think that's all I wanted to talk about the Sixers. I was so disgusted, and like there are more comments, there are more things that pissed me off about the availability. But if I start playing all of them, I'm just going to get even angrier. So it's not worth it. So we talked about the Sixers, we talked about the Phillies, we talked about the Flyers, we talked about the Masters a little bit at the start of the show. Really cool moment there at the end. Rory McIlroy wins in the playoff and has that moment with his wife and his daughter. Really cool moment. I didn't realize that he hadn't won a Masters before. I thought that he had. So that was a cool moment for him. Cool moment for the sport. Cool moment in that, like, if you go way back to the start of his career, where they had the what was not really a passing of the torch, but kind of like a setting the stage for what was to come. The Nike commercial with him and Tiger Woods, and him idolizing Tiger, and then them kind of being in the tee box together. Right, Tiger hits a drive, and then Rory comes up and hits a drive. It almost felt like the prophecy was fulfilled with Rory winning the Masters, but it was a cool moment. Now, there's one thing I did not get to, and there was one thing that I saw over in the comments that is very exciting for somebody in our comments section, a mainstay of the comments section, if you will. Ford, who I was at travel tryouts with last week, says, Russ, my son made a travel squad. First tryout he's ever had for travel, and the boy made it. Good job, Ford Jr. The real question is, will Ford Jr. and Russ's kid play on the same team? Because if so, I don't know what we're going to do. I have no idea what that's going to look like. Not only am I going to spend every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning with Ford in the comments of this show, but then that means that anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 times per week, I will also see Ford at soccer practice if they're on the same team. Congrats to Ford Jr. That's very exciting. I don't know what this means for me and Ford, though. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. All right, that's going to end a marvelous Monday. We'll be back on a wonderful Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. I will tell you that the time on Wednesday and even on Friday might shift a little bit. I have kids home for the week. Apparently, you get spring break week leading up to Easter, so taking care of my small humans in the morning before coming on to do the show. The show time might shift a little bit Wednesday and Friday. I will try to have that out there very early so that you're not like showing up at 8:30 expecting a show and then it's like 8:40 like today. So I will do my darndest to get the studios and everything set up with the time. But thank you for your patience if the shows come out a little bit later than usual this week. So anyway, on that, it's time to end the Russ Joy Show for the day. I've been Russ Joy. You knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I'll talk to you Wednesday. In the meantime, you can go check out Phightin Words with Anthony Sanfilippo and Bob Wankel as they break down everything to do with the Phillies every Monday and Friday on the Joy Media account and on their YouTube account, wherever you get your podcasts. You can go check out It's Just Wrestling. Dropped an episode last week. Going to get back in the swing of doing it again. this week as well on the road to WrestleMania. We'll be talking about that and AEW and a whole bunch of other stuff. And Snow the Goalie will be back with the final press row show of the year on Tuesday night. And we'll probably have a regular episode of the show as well. So tons of content coming your way. But again, until Wednesday, this has been the Russ Joy Show. I've been Russ Joy. You knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. And when the show's over, leave a comment in the regular comments section. Let me know what you agreed with, disagreed with, what you're looking the most forward to in Philadelphia sports and more. And I'll talk to you Wednesday here on the Russ Joy Show. Let's hit that brand new outro. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you soon.